Humans come in all shapes and sizes. Are you too big for this 2024 Ducati Hypermotard 698 Mono RVE? Is that name long enough for you? In this video, we'll find out. We're going to be looking at riding footage of me on this bike from all different angles on a 360 camera, so I recommend watching this in 4K for the best visual experience. Keep in mind while watching me, I am 6'1", 210 pounds, and I have a 34-inch waist and a 36-inch inseam. I have been lifting weights since I was a teenager. Has it been 5 years already? I am guilty of skipping many a leg day, so most of my mass is dense in the upper body. So keep in mind if you have a higher fat content, you're gonna look even bigger on this bike than I do. Anyway, my specs out of the way, let's do work.
We do motorcycles, Mustangs, and man stuff here, so if you feel the vibe and you'd like to join the tribe, then hit that subscribe to keep the dream alive.
And please shop my Amazon storefront for the coolest stuff you've ever seen. I love you guys.
Formalities aside, in the USA and Canada, our average male height is 5'9". The UK and Italy are about 5'10", Germany 5'11", Australia 5'8", and so on. So I see why most motorcycles are designed for riders between 5'7" and 5'11". But let's not forget, most modern bikes also have enough power and performance to lug around 300+ pound men at blinding speeds, so if you don't think you'll fit on a particular bike, you may be mistaken. The Hypermotard 698 Mono boasts a 35.6-inch stock seat height and a claimed dry weight of just 333 pounds, with an approximate wet weight of 352 pounds. That means it's about 50 pounds lighter than the average motorcycle, but several inches taller in true supermoto form. Surprisingly, the 698 Mono has a GVWR, or gross vehicle weight rating, of 783 pounds, which is the maximum weight the bike can carry when fully loaded. So let's start off with your body size. Are you a heavyweight or a flyweight or somewhere in between? Or maybe even outside of those extremes? Let's see if this bike will fit you. So that GVWR of 783 pounds includes the weight of the bike plus fluids, passengers, cargo, any gear you're wearing, and any other attachments to the bike. So taking 783 pounds and subtracting the wet weight of 352 pounds gives us 431 pounds to play with. So if you weigh 180 pounds with your gear on, you have 251 pounds left for cargo, a passenger, or other things. However, I don't think we ride supermoto with passengers and tons of cargo, so basically, as long as you're under a whopping 431 pounds with gear on, you'll be able to ride this bike without any problems at all. However, having owned both the Hyper 950 and now the 698, I would say if you're over 260-ish pounds or so, the more powerful Hyper 950 may be more fun for you. The 950 has insane power delivery. Some things to consider for heavier riders: approaching the weight limit of the bike can affect the handling and performance, so keep in mind your suspension might need adjustments to accommodate your extra weight, and braking distances could increase. So be sure to consider your riding style and your comfort level in this context. For skinny riders, lighter riders might find the bike feels even more nimble and playful, and at 350 pounds wet, you won't have to worry about losing control of the bike. However, the wind protection is minimal, or more like non-existent, so prepare for a bit more buffeting at higher speeds. So the Hyper 698 sounds manageable, right? But remember, it is a supermoto built for agility, stunts, and carving corners. So how does that translate into real-world comfort for different body heights? For tall riders, I am 6'1", and let me tell you, like all supermotos, the stock seat height is definitely on the taller side. I can flat-foot it comfortably, but swinging my leg over takes some agility and flexibility, two attributes I definitely need to level up. If you do have a hip joint problem, a supermoto might not be good for you, but if you are moderately flexible, you can pull this off without a hitch.
So despite my longer than average legs, it actually takes some effort to swing my leg around this bike. And as you can see, I'm about able to flat foot this bike, especially with these Style Martine boots, which have about 1 inch of a heel on them. Dismounting the bike takes an equal amount of flexibility. So just get ready for some exercise getting on and off this bike.
Now, I have an odd body shape myself. My legs are a bit too long for my torso, so if you have a normal body with a longer upper body and you're over 6'2" or so, you may want to consider handlebar risers for a tad more comfort, just like on any bike. But for me, the reach is perfectly comfortable as is on the 698. For our shorter brothers and sisters, the seat height is definitely going to be a challenge. But I know you, and you'd never turn down a challenge, would you? Especially for this treasure chest of good times on 2 wheels. Even with the lowered seat option, you will still need to tiptoe at stops. And if you're under 5'7" finish, you may need to tiptoe on one foot. But the narrow seat and lightweight design make it surprisingly manageable. This bike weighs just 352 pounds wet. With some practice and maybe an aftermarket adjustment or two, shorter riders could not only make it work, but have a blast doing it. Check out this warrior right here. If he can do it, you have nothing to fear. This man is a true patriot. God bless him. You can get a seat from Ducati for $341 that lowers the seat height by another 0.6 inches. The part number is on screen now. If you have a good dealer, I recommend Hudson Valley Motorcycles in Austining, New York, by the way. I'm sure they can tweak your suspension and lower the bike further for you. And don't forget, many rider boots add a good ½ inch to an inch of height, and every little bit helps. But hey, specs only tell half the story. How does a Hypermotard feel on the road for different sizes? From a tall rider's perspective, for me, the riding position is surprisingly comfortable, even on long stretches. The wind protection is minimal, but that's part of the Supermoto charm. The agility and handling are incredible, making it a blast on twisty roads. But for highway stints, it's TBA. I'm hoping to put in 200 miles on the highway next week and make a video about it, so keep it locked into Ducati Diaries. From a shorter rider's perspective, I think you're going to have a lot of fun. The bike feels light and nimble, and the power delivery is smooth and predictable. The bike is easy to keep under control. Sure, stopping requires some planning, maybe even some strategy, but the overall experience is exhilarating. And at the risk of sounding cliched, you're going to feel like the king of the world sitting tall on this motorcycle.
The king of the world!
Plus, you'll be enjoying the safety and benefits of sitting higher and seeing over cars, so you can own your area of the road and ride with better situational awareness. So is the 2024 Ducati Hypermotard 698 Mono too big or too small? Well, it depends. From a tall rider's perspective, for riders like me who are a little bit above average, it's a fantastic option, especially if you love aggressive riding and don't mind a slightly sporty stance. I will say my friend has a different opinion though. He's 5'11", which is 2 inches above average here in the States, and he didn't like the feel. So much of it is going to be subjective and depend on your desired riding style. I personally love the flickability and agility of this bike. Let's talk about the bulk of the bike. About a year ago, I did a video on if my Ducati Monster 937 was too small for me. Ultimately, I decided I was a bit oversized for it, but it was a fun bike nonetheless. The Monster is about 60 pounds heavier than the Hyper 698, but due to its height, the 698 feels a lot bigger than the Monster, and I don't feel too big for it. At 220 pounds geared up, this bike can be frighteningly fast if you pin the throttle, and it keeps painting a big old smile on my face every time I ride it. Hey, by the way, it takes many hours to make these videos, so a big thank you to everyone who listens to my few seconds of scripture, even if you're not a believer. I appreciate you. And that reminds me of my favorite verse. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will dine with him, and he with me. Revelation 3:20. Okay, riding style. Remember, your riding style plays a big role. If, like me, you're an aggressive rider who prioritizes agility and performance, the Hypermotard might be a good fit regardless of its size. But if you prefer long, relaxed cruises, it might not be the best choice. This bike is more geared for track, city, around town, and in general, shorter, crazier stints. Ultimately, the best way to know if this bike is right for you is to swing a leg over it and see for yourself. Most dealerships offer demo rides, so take advantage of that opportunity. The Supermoto scene is more than just bikes. It's a community of passionate riders who share a love for adventure, tinkering, and pushing boundaries. It's about weekend track days, epic road trips, and the camaraderie of folks who understand the pure joy of two wheels. Or one wheel, probably mostly one wheel. Anyway, if you crave excitement, and if you dream of exploring every inch of the road, and maybe beyond, then Supermoto might just be your perfect match. It's not about speed, although let's be honest, that's part of the fun. It's about the feeling of freedom, of pushing your limits, and of experiencing the world in a whole new way. Imagine this, you're weaving through the traffic like a pinball, flicking the bike with effortless precision. Every twist of the throttle is an adrenaline rush, every corner an invitation to push your limits. That's the Supermoto magic. And if that sounds like fun to you, don't let your size, weight, height, age, or anything stand in your way of the fun to be had with this Ducati Hypermotard 698 Mono. It's a blast to ride. Thanks for joining us on this ride. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment below and share your thoughts on the 2024 Hypermotard 698. And always remember the motto, always be kinder than necessary, and I will see you in the next one. You guys are awesome.